The twins in the cemetery. Being the new kid is never easy, but starting my junior year at Southern Lehigh High School in Pennsylvania felt impossible. Everyone already had their cliques, their inside jokes, their established lunch tables. Lunchtime was the absolute worst. At my school, juniors weren't allowed to leave campus, so I was forced into the social minefield of the cafeteria. I dreaded that walk every day, tray in hand, scanning a sea of full tables, praying I wouldn't have to endure the humiliation of sitting alone, or worse, awkwardly asking to join a crowded table. One afternoon, I walked in and it was packed. No open seats anywhere. Panic started to set in until I saw a table in the far corner. It was mostly empty, just two guys sitting there. It seemed like the least intimidating option, so I swallowed my pride, walked over, and asked if I could sit. They glanced at each other almost like they were communicating without words before one of them nodded and said, "Yeah." Sitting down, I realized they were identical twins. They looked partially Hispanic, but spoke without any distinct accent. Surprisingly, they were decent guys. They introduced themselves as Antonio and Bruno. We actually had a good conversation, and for the first time, I felt a little hope. When they invited me to hang out after school, I didn't even hesitate. I needed friends, and I had to start somewhere. I exchanged numbers with them and went home to drop off my bag. Shortly after, I got a text from Bruno. He said they were hanging out around 9 that night near the old cemetery, about a 10-minute walk from my house. He mentioned a cool spot in the woods nearby. Since it was a Friday and I had zero plans, I agreed. As 9 o'clock rolled around, Bruno texted to confirm I was still coming. I told him I was on my way. I began the walk in the dark. The further I got from my house, the more the isolation hit me. I was walking to a cemetery at night to meet two guys I had only known for a few hours. It felt sketchy, but I pushed the doubt away. I reached the desolate road next to the cemetery. No sign of them. I texted Bruno, and he immediately replied that they were deep in the woods by a small lake they wanted to show me. He sent his location pin. I entered the tree line. It was pitch black. I had to use my dim phone flashlight just to see my own feet, pushing thorny branches out of my way. I walked for what felt like ages, calling out their names. According to the GPS, I was right on top of them. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. I froze. They were definitely footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching me from the darkness. They were slow, too slow. "Guys, stop messing around. You better not be trying to scare me," I called out, my voice shaking slightly. Silence. No answer, just the slow crunch of leaves getting closer. Every instinct screamed at me to run. This was stupid. I turned around to head back to the road, and the moment I did, the footsteps changed. They went from slow and quiet to a full-on sprint. Before I could even brace myself, hands violently grabbed me from behind. Fingernails dug sharply into the skin of my neck, choking me. I heard a familiar voice, one of the twins, screaming frantically, "Grab him! Grab him!" Adrenaline exploded in my veins. I thrashed wildly, managing to break free from the chokehold. I didn't look back. I ran like my life depended on it because I knew it did. I could hear them crashing through the brush behind me, pursuing me all the way to the tree line. Thankfully, I was faster. I didn't stop running until I burst through my front door, locking it behind me. My parents were horrified when they saw the nail marks and bruises on my neck. We took photos and reported it to the school the next day. With the text messages as proof, Antonio and Bruno were expelled. My parents made me block their numbers, which I gladly did. They asked if the twins knew where we lived. I told them not as far as I know. I was wrong. About a week later, I woke up in the middle of the night, shivering. My room was freezing. I could hear the wind whistling, and I realized my window was slid completely open. It made zero sense. It was 50 degrees outside. I walked over to shut it and looked down. Below my window is a small architectural ledge, something my dad always said we could use in case of a fire. It was empty now. Confused, I shut the window and went to my parents' room. I woke my mom up and asked if she had opened my window. She sat up, groggy and confused. No, why would I? "Someone opened it from the outside," I whispered, panic rising in my throat. She tried to wake my dad, but he just grumbled and told me to go back to sleep, thinking I was being paranoid. I left their bedroom door open and walked back down the dark hallway toward my room. That's when I noticed it. I had left my bedroom door wide open. Now, it was half shut. My heart hammered against my ribs. I slowly pushed the door open just an inch more, peering through the crack into the darkness of my own room. I don't know what I expected to see, but the reality was worse than any nightmare. There was someone standing behind my door. I screamed. I screamed louder than I ever have in my life, a pure primal sound of terror. The door suddenly slammed shut in my face from the inside. My dad came rushing out, wide awake now. "There's people in my room," I yelled. He barged in and flipped on the light just in time for us to see a leg disappearing out the window. My dad ran downstairs and out the front door to chase them, but they were gone. Vanished into the night. I know it was them. It had to be the twins. We called the police, but without concrete proof of who it was, they couldn't do anything but tell us to lock our doors and get cameras. I spent months sleeping with the lights on, terrified every time the wind blew. I should have trusted my gut that day in the cafeteria. Sometimes being alone is safer than the wrong company. Story 2. The Substitute. It was my freshman year of high school back in 2007. We had a substitute teacher for gym class during the last period of the day. It was one of the stormiest days of the year, thunder shaking the gym walls. The sub was an older man, maybe late 50s, with graying hair and a look that just felt off. When he took attendance, he paused when he got to me, doing a blatant double take that made my skin crawl. I've always looked a bit older for my age, and the way his eyes lingered on me felt predatory. He sent us off to play volleyball and then disappeared into the hallway near the locker rooms. He was gone for nearly 40 minutes. When the period ended, I went to the locker room to change and go home. Strange thing was, my locker wouldn't open. I tried my combination 3 times. Nothing. It wouldn't click. Frustrated and wanting to catch my bus, I went to find the sub to ask for the master list of combinations, thinking maybe I was crazy and forgot my own code. He told me to wait while he got the book. When he finally came out, he had the book open to a specific page. He didn't just give me the code, though. He followed me into the girls' locker room. It was basically empty by now, just one other girl finishing up and leaving. We were alone. He walked right up to my locker and tried the combination written in his book. It didn't work. He tried again and again. Every time it failed, he would look at me and let out this strange little laugh. I forced myself to awkward laugh along, just trying to be polite, but alarm bells were ringing in my head. Then he placed his hand on my shoulder. "We'll figure this out," he murmured. He tried the combo again, but this time I felt his hand slowly, deliberately inching down from my shoulder toward my lower back. I immediately recoiled, pulling away from his touch. "It's okay," I said quickly, grabbing my bag. "I'm late for my bus." As soon as I said that, he tried the locker one last time and it popped right open. He just smiled at me, a creepy, knowing smile, and walked out of the locker room. I waited until I heard the heavy door click shut before I started changing as fast as humanly possible. I just wanted to get out of there. Suddenly, the locker room plunged into pitch blackness. The lights had been cut. My heart stopped. I finished pulling up my jeans in the dark, shoved my stuff into my bag, and felt my way toward the back exit that led directly outside. I was terrified he was waiting for me in the dark. To get to the exit, I had to pass an intersecting row of lockers. I glanced down the aisle to make sure the coast was clear. There was a tiny square of light coming from a high window, just enough to illuminate the end of the aisle. And there he was, peeking around the corner of the lockers, just watching me in the dark. I didn't scream. I just ran. I bolted for the exit door, bursting out into the pouring rain. I heard him call out behind me, "Wait, it's not what it looks like." I didn't care. I walked the whole way home in the storm, soaking wet, crying. I realized later he probably changed my combination while he was gone for those 40 minutes just to trap me there after everyone else had left. I never told anyone because I was too ashamed and scared, but I'll never forget seeing his face peeking out from that darkness. Story 3. The Thing in the Music Basement. In high school, I was a band kid. Our teacher, Mr. Nicholson, had an easy grading policy. Attend class, do your weekly lesson, get an A. But I had slacked off and missed 2 lessons, dropping my grade to a B. I begged him for a chance to make it up, and he reluctantly agreed to let me practice during my lunch period in one of the downstairs storage rooms. I didn't really plan on practicing, I just wanted the credit. The next day at lunch, I grabbed my saxophone and headed down the stairs to the music department's basement. It was always creepy down there, damp, smelling of old instrument oil, and totally silent. It was a long hallway lined with small 7x7 soundproof practice rooms, mostly used for storing old chairs and broken stands. I went into one of the rooms, shut the door, and set up my music stand just in case Mr. Nicholson came down to check on me. Then I sat down and started playing games on my phone. 10 minutes passed. Suddenly, the lights died. It wasn't just dark, it was that suffocating underground basement darkness where you can't even see your own hand in front of your face. I instinctively flipped the light switch up and down. Nothing. I stumbled to the door and opened it into the pitch-black hallway. I held up my old phone. It didn't have a flashlight, just the dim glow of the screen. It barely lit up 2 feet in front of me, but it was enough to see something move at the far end of the hall. One of the storage room doors was open. I heard something heavy being dragged, like a large plastic container scraping against concrete. Then, strange, manic breathing. It didn't sound right. It sounded animalistic, grunting. I panicked. I turned off my phone screen so I wouldn't be seen and quickly backed into my little room, shutting the door as quietly as I could. I don't know why I hid instead of running right then, but the sounds terrified me. I sat in the dark, listening, waiting for the power to come back. It didn't. After what felt like an eternity of silence, I decided I had to get out. I couldn't take it anymore. I quietly opened my door again, using my phone screen as a dim guide. I inched toward the stairs. Crunch. A sound from right behind me. I dove into the nearest open storage room and pulled the door shut, my heart hammering so loud I thought it would give me away. I stood there in absolute blackness, pressing my ear to the door. You know that feeling when you're in a room with someone, you can't hear them, you can't see them, but you can feel their presence? That feeling suddenly washed over me. I wasn't alone in this tiny room. Shaking uncontrollably, I lifted my phone and pressed the home button just for a second. The screen lit up. There was a man standing in the corner, not 3 feet away from me. He was filthy, his eyes wide and manic, staring right at me. I gasped. The silence broke. "I see you," a raspy voice whispered. Then a cold hand patted my shoulder twice before gripping it tight. I screamed and threw myself at the door, fumbling blindly for the knob. He tried to slam it shut on me, but adrenaline took over. I ripped it open, tore down the dark hallway, and scrambled up the stairs back to the main band room where the lights were blazing. Security searched the basement. They found nothing but moved equipment. Whoever it was had cut the power to try and steal expensive instruments, and I had walked right into his trap. I never went down there alone again. Story 4, It Wasn't My Friend. One night, my friends and I came up with a genius plan to break into our high school. We knew about a basement window that was broken and never latched. It required hopping a small metal gate and squeezing through a tiny opening, but it made us feel like real urban explorers. We made sure no security cars were around, hopped the gate, and crawled in. Once inside, we dispersed to explore the creepy, darkened basement. It was a mess of old desks and forgotten projects. While looking around, I saw one of my friends, Roland, standing near the stairs. He whispered, "Let's go upstairs." I nodded and followed him up the staircase. He opened the door to the main ground floor hallway. It was surreal. I always assumed schools left some security lights on, but it was totally dead, pitch black, except for the eerie red glow of the exit signs, casting long, scary shadows. I followed him down the hall. "Dude, this is really creepy," I whispered to his back. "I know, right?"
he replied, his voice low. We reached the bathrooms, and he walked into one of the stalls, closing the door. I stood by the sinks, waiting. "Hurry up, man," I hissed, nervous about getting caught. I waited for a minute or two. Suddenly, my phone started ringing loudly in the silent bathroom. I scrambled to answer it. It was my other friend, Chris. "Dude, where the hell did you go?" he asked. "I'm upstairs with Roland," I whispered back. There was a pause. "What do you mean? Roland is right here next to me. We're all still in the basement." My blood turned to ice. "What?" Through the phone, I heard Roland's voice in the background. "Yeah, I'm right here." I slowly looked up at the bathroom stall in front of me. In the gap above the door, I could see the top of someone's head. They were standing on the toilet, peering over the stall, just watching me. A low, guttural laugh echoed from inside the stall. It definitely wasn't my friend. I dropped the phone, screaming, and bolted out of that bathroom faster than I've ever moved. I heard the stall door slam open behind me as I sprinted blindly through the dark hallways back to the basement stairs. I practically fell down them, screaming for my friends to go. We scrambled back out that tiny window, scraping our knees and elbows, and didn't stop running until we were blocks away. When I looked back at the school from the safety of the street, I saw a silhouette standing in one of the second-floor windows, hands pressed against the glass, watching us leave. We never went back. And I still wonder, who was I following in the dark?